First, Francis deSouza.
Good afternoon. Genomics is the study of the DNA of an organism, the instructions for cells to develop, survive, and reproduce, the instructions of life. 16 years after the first human genome was sequenced, we stand at a transition from an era where groundbreaking genomic discoveries promised a revolution in healthcare to enter an era where we can harness the power of genomics to improve our health today. But there are some big obstacles. I'd like to share two stories that highlight both the promise and the urgency of this transition. This is Ellis. When Ellis was 16 months old, she got an infection that she just couldn't shake, and she kept getting weaker. At 19 months, her parents took her to a neurologist. He said the symptoms would probably clear up on their own, but they didn't. At 20 months, another neurologist misdiagnosed her with Guillain-Barré syndrome, leading to months of ineffective treatment. Then, when Ellis was 25 months old, her mother saw a girl on Good Morning America who had the same symptoms as Ellis. That girl had been diagnosed using genomic sequencing. Ellis's mom went to her doctors and demanded the test. Sequencing provided an answer. Ellis had riboflavin transporter deficiency type 2. The good news is that the treatment is available, high-dose vitamin B2. But it's not a cure and couldn't reverse the damage already done. This is Ellis at 27 months. If Ellis had been diagnosed at 19 months when she first saw their neurologist, instead of at 25 months, she might not have lost the ability to walk or her hearing. She might not have lost the use of her arms and hands. If Ellis had been diagnosed at 19 months, she might not have difficulty swallowing and need to be fed via a tube. The right information at the right time can make all the difference. Around the same time, Ellis was searching for a diagnosis. A 3-year-old girl arrived at the pediatric intensive care unit in San Francisco with sudden heart failure, kidney failure, and muscle problems. Her doctors suspected a mitochondrial disorder, which meant that there was nothing they could do. They told the family to prepare for the end. But the medical team had one last idea: genomic sequencing. Now, Medi-Cal doesn't cover whole genome sequencing, so her doctor reached out to Illumina's philanthropic sequencing program. The sequencing results revealed that the girl had a kidney disease caused by a genetic mutation. She was only the 7th person in the world to be diagnosed with that disease. When the disease was known, the medical team was able to stabilize her and send her home within a couple of weeks. With a kidney transplant, she'll be able to live a normal, healthy life. It's a miracle. But the miraculous part of this story isn't that whole genome sequencing was able to diagnose her. Sequencing does that for about 50% of kids with undiagnosed genetic diseases that do the test. The miraculous part of this story was that the doctor knew about genomic testing and had the connections to get her the testing she needed. Access to care shouldn't be a miracle. Applying genomics in medical practice will change the diagnosis and treatment of almost all diseases. Cancer, infectious disease, cardiovascular disease, mental illness. Genomic testing can be life-changing, but it's just not getting to the people who need it. Approximately 350 million people have undiagnosed genetic diseases. Half are children, like the girls I described. 30% of those children will not reach their 5th birthday. Today, in the US, children with undiagnosed genetic disease go on a 5 to 7 year diagnostic odyssey on average. During that time, they will be misdiagnosed 2 to 3 times, imposing a huge pain on the child, the family, and the healthcare system. Almost 10% of the families will go bankrupt. Yet less than 1% of undiagnosed disease patients today receive genomic testing. Cancer is the 2nd leading cause of death globally today, responsible for 9 million deaths in 2018. Genomics can improve cancer risk prediction, detection, diagnosis, therapy development, therapy selection, and monitoring, helping bend the cancer mortality curve and finally allowing us to cure some cancers. Yet less than 10% of cancer patients have their tumors sequenced. More than 95% of Americans have genetic variations that mean that they won't benefit or could suffer adverse effects from common medications. Adverse drug reactions cause more than 100,000 deaths in the US and cost the healthcare system $30 billion each year. A third are caused by gene-drug interactions. Having your pharmacogenomic profiles mean that you could avoid taking a blood thinner that won't stop clots after a stent, an anesthesia that could put you into sudden cardiac arrest, or a statin that causes muscle toxicity. Yet few health systems do pharmacogenomic profiles on their patients. Genomics has the potential to impact so many aspects of healthcare, but too few people are reaping the benefits. Bringing genomics to patients who need it will require action across the healthcare ecosystem. The genomics industry must innovate to make genomic analysis faster, cheaper, and simpler. In the last 2 decades, sequencing a genome went from costing over $3 billion and taking 15 years to $1,000 in a single day. And we're working on a $100 genome. Healthcare providers must be equipped to take advantage of genomics. A recent Blue Cross Blue Shield Association study found that even where there's coverage, genomic tests are often vastly underutilized. In the US, around 250,000 children with undiagnosed diseases are covered for genomic testing, yet only 1,000 were prescribed in the last year. Physician education is a major issue. Many physicians went to medical school well before the first human genome was sequenced. We also need clinical decision support systems that help doctors know when to order a genetic test and what to do with the information they get. Payers must accelerate how they evaluate the impacts genomics will have on patient outcomes, and policymakers must ensure that individuals feel confident that accessing their genome will not harm them or their families. We need robust protection around privacy, consent, and anti-discrimination. And philanthropists should incorporate genomics into their global health agendas. We need a global genomes initiative, like the Global Alliance for Vaccines, to make sure that genomics improves healthcare for all, not just the 1%. This is Ellis today. She's a fighter. She can walk short distances and has a cochlear implant to help her hear. She starts kindergarten in the fall. But even with vitamin B2, she's at risk for devastating setbacks, and her family has started a Cure RTD Foundation to fund research into a cure. I want each of you to leave here today thinking of Ellis, thinking of where she and other children like her would be if sequencing was a standard of care for children with undiagnosed genetic diseases. I want each of you to leave here today curious about the impact genomics can have. Understand your genome and be ready to advocate for yourselves and your families. I want each of you to leave here today knowing that genomics is not part of some distant, far-out future. Genomics is here today. Genomics is changing lives today. And it's up to all of us to make sure that everyone can benefit. Thank you.